All right, we are live, and today I woke up. We did the stream on running shoes last night, and I was like, we have to make this happen. I wanna like sometimes sometimes people put down into words some feelings that you felt before, but you didn't know how to communicate that. And that is something that happened yesterday where we read about on, and they say this at on. We believe incredible things happen when humans move. Being in motion taps into the place in the subconscious where inspiration lies. It's called flow state, a mindset where action and awareness blur together, leaving us fully immersed in the moment. A hack for the mind, helping us to dream bigger and better. And on, we believe incredible things happen when humans move. Being in motion taps into the place in the subconscious where inspiration lies. It's called flow state, a mindset where action and awareness blur together, leaving us fully immersed in the moment. A hack for the mind, helping us to dream bigger and better. And that was very interesting. I read that and I was like, today we gotta run. And today I will run knowing what I read about what I read over here. And if this is something that on wrote and they have a bunch of athletes, this is also something like they are constantly talking to their athletes. They're constantly talking to people at the highest level who for whom running might be a career, might be a job, but also a lot of times when you become good at something, you start thinking about it as life philosophy. That hey, running teaches you about life philosophy. It's not about the sprint, it's about the marathon. You got to take it one step at a time. You cannot think about the end goal, stuff like that, right? And I find that really cool. Like if On has laid this out, I believe they definitely have talked to whatever their millions of buyers, millions of athletes or people who consider themselves as athletes, and have this conversation again and again that what do you feel when you run? What makes it what yeah, what do you feel when you run? Why do you run? What is that you are chasing every single day? And that's very interesting. Okay. All right. So we went on a run. That was great. And now let's get into cursor. Cursor. Let's see if I just search cursor, what comes up? Are you referring to the AI coding tool? Yes. A mouse cursor. Oh, I'm assuming you're referring to cursor, the AI powered coding tool. If you meant something else, please clarify. Cursor is an IDE that integrates AI based on models like Claude Assist to assist with coding tasks, auto completion, debugging, code generation, and more. It's popular for streamlining workflows, especially for developers working languages like Python, JavaScript, and TypeScript. Tell me all about the company. Owns newer post. Developed by Anysphere Inc. Please clarify. Overview of the company. Company name Anysphere. Product Cursor, an AI-powered integrated development environment. Founded 22. Founders Suleya Asif, Arvid, Aman, and Michael all met while studying at MIT. Headquarters San Francisco. Industry software development, AI developer tools to enhance developer productivity by integrating AI into coding workflows, making software development faster, more efficient, and intuitive. What is Cursor? Proprietary IDE built as a fork of VS Code, customized with AI features to assist developers. It's designed for Windows, macOS, and Linux and aims to streamline coding through AI-powered code generation. Developers can write code using natural language prompts, code-based understanding. Cursor indexes entire code bases, allowing natural language queries to retrieve information or reference files, documentation. I know one of my friends who like this is what's happening, right? Like one of my friends, she is building something new and she's building her own thing, and she's like, hey, now with Cursor, I think she was using Windsurf, and she's like, you can build so much stuff. You can build so much stuff just by yourself. Before, if she had the same idea, you would either it would take super long for you or you would need a team. But now you can just do everything by yourself. And you are literally just talking to the IDE, talking to Cursor, talking to Windsurf. Cursor indexes entire code bases, allowing natural language queries to retrieve information or reference files. Documentation. Smart rewrites enables refactoring or updating multiple lines of code simultaneously. Agent mode executes complete tasks end to end while keeping developers in the loop. Extension compatibility supports VS Code's ecosystem of extensions, themes, and key bindings. Privacy options offers a privacy mode where code isn't stored remotely with SOC 2 Type 2 certification for security. Code isn't stored remotely. Used by engineers at companies like OpenAI, Shopify, Instacart, Spotify, Uber, and even Major League Basketball, with users reporting significant workflow improvements. That is crazy. That is crazy if everybody's using it. And I'm really surprised people at OpenAI are using it. That's true. OpenAI is really focused on. That's also interesting. OpenAI, a lot of companies were initially focused on foundational models, but slowly they are moving towards building better products because they realize how just competing just at foundational models is becoming harder and harder because it is becoming commoditized. So now, if OpenAI has built this extremely strong brand identity that everybody pretty much has heard about ChatGPT and they have the ChatGPT app installed, then you have to kind of leverage that and build a better product. So it would be interesting if OpenAI is thinking about building a cursor competitor. Instacart, Spotify, Uber, and even Major League Basketball. 22. AnySphere, founded by 4 MIT alumni with a focus on AI-driven developer tools. 23. Launch Cursor, raise 8 million seed funding by OpenAI startup fund. Okay. So OpenAI is involved in that. OpenAI. Does OpenAI plan to launch? They might just acquire Cursor then. Like, is it pretty much their company now? OpenAI plan to launch a Cursor competitor. Let's see. Okay, go back. 24. Raised 60 million in Series A led by A16Z, valuing AnySphere at 400 million. Investors included Jeff Dean, Google's chief scientist, Noam Brown, and founders of Stripe, GitHub, and Perplexity. November, acquired Super Maven, an AI coding assistant to enhance Cursor's capabilities. 25. Raised 105 million in Series B, led by, wow, things are moving fast. Series B led by Thrive Capital and A16Z, with Benchmark and existing investors valuing Anosphere at 2.5 billion. Reports surface of talks for a new funding round at a potential 10 billion valuation, reflecting the AI coding sector's boom. Cursor reportedly hit 100 million annual recurring revenue, making Anosphere one of the fastest growing SaaS companies ever, reaching this milestone in 12 months. Wow. Is it better than OpenAI? They might be better than OpenAI because... Is it better than OpenAI? What is OpenAI's ARR? Let's see. What's this question? There's no confirmed public announcement from OpenAI about launching a direct competitor to Cursor, the AI-powered code editor by AnySphere. Coding space is hot, and OpenAI's existing work fueled speculation. They already powered GitHub Copilot through their Codex model, a precursor to GPT, which competes with Cursor by offering code completion and generation various IDEs. OpenAI's Canvas feature, launched in 24, also enhances coding within ChatGPT, overlapping with some of Cursor's natural language coding capabilities, though it's not a standalone IDE. That makes sense. Canvas can help you create the code, but that's not a IDE where you can actually hit publish. You are basically copy pasting into your VS Code into your existing IDE over there. OpenAI exploring deeper coding tools, possibly to rival Cursor's code base aware features or agentic workflows, but they're definitely getting into agents now with the operator that's deep into the browser. For example, Post on X mentioned OpenAI's profitability challenges and their push into new domains, which could include advanced coding assistants. But these are unverified and speculative. No concrete evidence of Cursor-specific competitors exist as of April 25. OpenAI's history suggests they would rather integrate coding features into ChatGPT or partner, like with GitHub, than build a new IDE from scratch. That makes sense. That is too much product development. So they would rather just work with GitHub, and they have already invested in Cursor. Cursor's edge, its VS Code fork, and deep code base indexing. Might be tough for OpenAI to match without significant investment. If they did plan a rival, they would likely leverage GPT-5 student development for smarter code understanding, but nothing's on the horizon publicly. Whoa. Annual recurring revenue for 2025 is estimated at $12.7 billion, tripling from the previous year's 3.7. Note that ARR estimates can vary slightly depending on the source and timing. Breakdown OpenAI's revenue. Monthly revenue was estimated to be at least 415 million, up from 333. OpenAI says it has 400 million weekly active users for ChatGPT, up 25% from 400 million weekly active users in Feb. Paid subscribers increased nearly 30% from 15.5 to 20 million. Wow, 20 million paid subscribers. These numbers are impressive. Sean Chauhan, I know. He's Sean Chauhan. I write interesting things about AI startups, founders, and future of work. Generative AI consultant. Okay, let's see. ChatGPT subscriptions 55 to 60%. Okay, API sales. I am surprised. I thought API sales would be more, but ChatGPT subscriptions are massive. Also because of the $200 subscription now. Around 7 to 7.6 billion partnerships. Microsoft total ARR 12.7. Wow, it's staggering, but it's heavily weighted towards subscriptions, which may face saturation or competition from Anthropic. Google APIs and partnerships are critical for diversification, especially as compute costs soar. Historical context: ChatGPT Plus and early API sales. Exact subscriber numbers aren't public, so estimates will rely on reported trends and user base growth. 500 million active users. That makes sense. If you have 500 million active users and 500 million weekly active users, and if everybody, even if everybody is at plus subscription, multiply by 20, that is $20 billion. But obviously not everyone is on there. So yeah, out of all those weekly active users, we were expecting around 40% are paid users. Wow. Not even $200 subscription. If everybody just pays, if just 40% of their weekly active users subscribe for the plus subscription, $20, $25, whatever, they're still making, yeah, they're making 8 billion or 7 billion. Wow. That makes sense. OpenAI's revenue is impressive but tied to high costs. 14.4 billion projected loss in 25 due to compute and operations. Subscriptions dominate but face churn risk, while APIs offer long-term stability if OpenAI maintains model superiority. Loses money on every customer, but this is unverified and likely exaggerated. Losses stem from infrastructure, not per user economics. Enterprise adoption: 92% of Fortune 500 use OpenAI products. New features like native image generation and potential GPT-5 launch. Global expansion: businesses in 156 countries use OpenAI tech. Okay, this is the big one. This includes ChatGPT Plus, ChatGPT Pro, ChatGPT Teams, and ChatGPT Enterprise. Wow, there's a difference. ChatGPT Pro is 200 per month, and ChatGPT Enterprise is 50 to 60 per month per user. Wow. I'm guessing ChatGPT Teams and Enterprise is pretty much same as ChatGPT Pro. The only difference is that you have to be at least, let's say, 5 users so that you can so that you pay more than ChatGPT Pro. Okay, so you kind of get a discount for bringing on more users. 55 to 60%. Subscriptions are OpenAI's largest revenue driver, fueled by individual users, small teams, and large organizations. Basis for estimate: in mid-24, subscriptions accounted for 55% of OpenAI's 3.4 billion ARR, with ChatGPT Plus alone generating significant volume due to its low price point and broad adoption. That makes sense. ARR reached 3.7 billion with 85% tied to products, consumer and business tiers combined. imagine how much Apple is making from this. Wow. Okay, let's go back to Cursor. Business model. And we looked into this. More reports surfaced for of talks for a new funding round potential at a potential 10 billion valuation, reflecting the AI coding sector's boom. Business model: subscription based, free tier, limited features for individuals, developers to try Cursor. Premium plans 20 to 40 per month per user for advanced features targeting both individual developers and teams. Business plan: centralized management, security, features for teams. Enterprise: for organization with 250 plus seats include SAML 2.0 SSO, smart indexing for massive code base, and enterprise grade security on AWS. This is very interesting because I think I've read that is Cursor team using Cursor to to build that product. This is very interesting because you're basically building a product. You're basically building a recursive product, right? Your product helps build can help you build your own product. Your product that you're selling to users, it's like selling pots, and every time, and the end product, the pot that you are selling, is also helping you make better pots. Yeah, I don't know if that analogy makes sense, but basically, every time the product that Cursor is selling to other people is also helping them themselves build their own product even better. So that is crazy. That is crazy. Okay, it's a this is what we read about in AGI 2027, because they were talking about AI researchers. We want to get AI. We want to get these AI agents into this loop where they start researching, and then they start researching on their own without any human intervention, and then they keep researching, they keep helping make themselves better, and then they get into this feedback cycle where they are producing more and more research, they're improving themselves, they're improving their own research techniques, and it's going pretty well. Okay, over 40,000 paying customers with 360,000 individual developers contributing to 100 million ARR. Revenue primarily comes from subscriptions with organic growth driven by word of mouth and bottom up adoption. Developers advocating for team wide use. With 360,000 individual developers contributing to 100 million ARR. Organic growth driven by word of mouth and bottom up adoption. Developers advocating for team wide use. Competitive advantage. DPI integration uses an ensemble of custom and frontier models. GPT-4, Claude, tailored for coding, offering contextually relevant suggestions based on developers' code base and style. I think Claude, I think I've heard this from a friend where they said that Claude has just focused on coding now. Claude is just focusing on coding now because they have kind of found their wedge. VS Code Fork leverages VS Code's familiarity in ecosystem, reducing the learning curve. Performance optimization, cache warming, preloads relevant context to reduce latency. Code-based indexing uses vector databases for fast, accurate searches across repositories. Security, SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, zero data retention options, and cloud and architecture matching on-premise security standards. User experience praised for intuitive design, with 83% of developers choosing Cursor over competitors during evaluations. Adoption, 1 million users, including engineers at top tech firms and non-tech organization. Its product-led growth strategy has driven rapid adoption without marketing spend. Competes with GitHub Copilot, Codium, SourceGraph, and JetBrains AI tools. This also just reminds me that RAMP is also pretty cool, because RAMP is the product that businesses used to give all their employees business cards, and then they start spending on different vendors. And then RAMP has really good research where they can really understand that, okay, bunch of businesses are using RAMP, so where are they spending? And they can do a really good cumulative research of all the startups, all the high-tech startups, all the fast-moving startups that are using RAMP. Where are with what vendors? Where are their employees spending their money? And I think I read the name Codium over there. I read the name Cursor over there, so that's also really cool. Yeah, Ramp has a great advantage over there. And I think they recently just hired an economist who is basically just gonna look at all Ramp's data. Ramp, when we say Ramp data, he's basically looking at all the businesses using Ramp, their spend data. Where are they spending? And you can pretty well understand what is happening in the market, especially in the startup scene. Where is the spend happening? With code-based indexing and instructed edit capabilities, challenges, enterprise barriers, some large companies hesitate to send code to cloud-based AI services. The Cursor security measures mitigate this. Scalability, maintaining performance with massive code bases and growing user bases is critical. Vision and culture, Anysphere aims to create a world where AI and developers work in tandem, accelerating software development and fostering creativity. Co-founder Aman emphasizes pragmatic AI product development, focusing on fast and accurate experiences. Quotes from Cursor founders. Let's see if we get anything over here. Okay. Emphasizes pragmatic AI product development, focusing on fast and accurate experiences. Culture, the team, all under 30, is described as focused and obsessed with developer experience. They prioritize product market fit over speculative investments, avoiding heavy GPU spending before validating demand. Avoiding heavy GPU spending before validating demand. Team 60 employees as of April 25, led by CEO Michael Truel. The founders' MIT background and implied research focus drive innovation. Funding buzz. Valuation could climb to 10 billion. New round reflecting investor confidence in AI coding tools. Leader in the generative AI era with comparisons to Atlassian for sustainable developer-driven growth. Atlassian. Recognition featured in Bloomberg TechCrunch CB. Word of mouth success, market traction. Critical notes. There's another Cursor. Now closed data collaboration platform. Acquired by Data Robot. This is unrelated to Anysphere's Cursor. Or speculative based on recent buzz rather than confirmed deals. Always cross-check such numbers. Skepticism on hype. AI coding space is crowded. It's a long-term edge. Depends on maintaining differentiation and trust and security. Okay. Let's see. Okay, first let's go down. Let's see what we got over here. Yes, the Cursor team uses Cursor to build their product. This creates a tight feedback loop, allowing them to rapidly test and improve the tool while developing it. Crazy. Just realized that the Cursor devs are building Cursor using Cursor. Surely that has to be the fastest product feedback loop in all time. I believe she works at OpenAI. Yes, ChatGPT Growth Anshita. Yes, they do. According to the pod with Lex Friedman, Lex asked them this specific question, and Aman building Cursor replied, yes, they use Cursor to build Cursor. Anysphere. Okay, we'll come back over here. And maybe let's check out the comments over here. Ultimate PMF recursion. Whoa. That's a good comment. Just Cursor it. Table stakes Anthropic building Claude code and stuff with Claude code. Only question is output code quality and economics. Claude code is cracked, but dollars can you improve full code context for Claude and have it less of a professor junior refactoring too often. Okay. And what was the last thing we asked? Okay. Quotes from Cursor founders. Aman, our goal is to make it easier for anyone to produce software. AI colleagues are in the best final stage. There's overhead in communicating ideas. If you have something, there's overhead in communicating ideas. If you have something close to instant that can iterate with you, development will look different. If you have something close to instant that can iterate with you, development will look different. There's overhead in communicating ideas. It's important to be pragmatic when building AI products. Many companies in 23-24 raised money and spent it all on GPUs before product market fit. We use the best tool for the job, sometimes API calls, sometimes custom models. Give me some interesting insights from Cursor founders interview on Lex Friedman podcast number 447. Let's see if we get anything over here. That would be cool. That would be cool. Okay. What do we have here? That's Aman Surge Immersion Beta Feb 25. Oh, Peak XV. Wait, Peak XV is this Indian branch of Sequoia. Cursor co-founder Aman on the journey from 0 to 100 million 12 months in the future of programming. Oh. I was listening to this podcast by Peak XP, the founder Aman of Cursor. I forgot what's the story of Peak XP. Peak XP was basically the original name of Mount K2, I believe, or Mount Everest. I forgot, but okay. Anyways, and these are the things that really worked out for Cursor. And these are the things that really worked out for Cursor. They added features like instructed edit ability and code-based indexing, which drove a lot of growth. Fast execution and product iterations because they were the users of their own product, and every effort went into building Cursor better with Cursor. Use user data to enhance the next edit prediction feature. They hired really good engineers using their own product looking at user data. They had really good engineers using their own product looking at user data. It was built on the success of GitHub Copilot, but with a better user experience than Copilot. Interesting. They added features. Actually, this makes me think that who owns the VS Code source code? Or by Microsoft? Right, I thought it was Microsoft. Okay, so it can be forked. It's under MIT license, which makes it open source and freely available for anyone to use, modify, and distribute, provided they comply with the license terms, including the copyright notice. Retains ownership of the original database. So somewhere is Cursor. Are we going to see a day where, wow, since Cursor is a fork of VS Code, AnySphere uses the MIT license source code as a foundation, but owns its modifications and additions, AI features, custom UI. They don't own the original VS Code base. Microsoft does, but the derivative work is there, subject to MIT license obligations for the VS Code portions. The MIT license allows projects like Cursor, a fork of VS Code, to build on the source code, customizing it for their needs. This is so interesting, right? Like when a company open sources something because they are like, oh, let's do this for the good of humanity, for the good of the technical world, and let people build better things. And suddenly what happens is that a small startup comes about and they build a product that is basically taking revenue from your product. Because Microsoft acquired GitHub, they open sourced the VS Code, and now Cursor is using VS Code fork to build a GitHub Copilot competitor and taking money away from GitHub Copilot. But with OpenAI has a partnership going on with Microsoft. They're getting some money, some basically Azure credits from there. At the same time, they were the first one to invest in Cursor. So OpenAI is kind of winning from both the sides. That's interesting. Yeah, what does Cursor spend? I'm curious, like how much does Cursor spend on OpenAI API? I don't know. So if the revenue is 100 million, how much are they giving away to OpenAI? Spends on OpenAI API or other AI models. API is a private company, and it doesn't share detailed financial breakdowns, and OpenAI's API billing is usage-based, making it tough to estimate without internal access to Cursor's API call volume model preferences or specific configuration. Integrates multiple LLMs, including GPT-4, 4o, and o1 models alongside Anthropic's Claude, and others to power features like code completion, chat, and composer. They likely pay OpenAI for API usage based on tokens processed or requests depending on the model. Cursor's annual recurring revenue hit 100 million in only 25 with over 40,000 paying customers on plans ranging from 20 to 40 per month pro and business tiers. The free tier also serves 1 million users, but it's unclear how much API usage this tier incurs. Cursor's $20 per month pro plan might not cover the cost of their API calls applying high usage of models like GPT-4 or 1. One user speculated they are using way more than $20 per month of API calls, though this is anecdotal and unverified. Mention a personal Cursor bill of $350 per month, hinting at heavy API reliance for some users, but this doesn't reflect Cursor's own spending. Input their own open AI API keys to bypass limits or offload costs, which reduces any serious direct spending for those users. However, core features like tab completion rely on Cursor's proprietary models or configurations, likely routing through their own API accounts. Wow, that is interesting, which means Cursor has an incentive to kind of build their own foundational models and reduce the reliance on GPT-4 and Claude. OpenAI's API pricing varies. GPT-4 costs $5 per 1 million input tokens and $15 per 1 million output tokens, while O1 Mini is $1.5 per 1 million input and $6 per 1 million output. If Cursor processes, yeah, that's very interesting. Like Cursor is kind of taking away business from OpenAI because OpenAI wants to get into the coding space as well, and they are basically working with GitHub Copilot, and Cursor is a competitor of GitHub Copilot, but also OpenAI has invested in Cursor. So OpenAI has a lot of incentive in just charging more to Cursor, but also the team of OpenAI uses Cursor. Wow, this is complicated. This is very interesting what's happening over here. It makes sense. I believe OpenAI is kind of playing the game where they're like, okay, letting Cursor do their own thing and improve the product until one day either OpenAI acquires them or builds their own product. And when they do that, they will just jack up the prices. But then you also have Claude. Claude will be like, okay, it's okay. You don't use GPT-4. We are way better. And we'll keep our prices low. If Cursor processes millions of tokens daily across thousands of users, cost could scale quickly. A small AI SaaS with 187 users reported spending $1,500 per month on OpenAI's API, suggesting Cursor's scale could mean millions monthly, but this is speculative. Rough estimation. 100 API calls per day, each call processing 2,000 tokens. That's 80 million tokens per day. Okay. Processing 2,000 tokens, $10 per 1 million tokens blended. That's 80 million tokens per day. Okay. Or 2.4 billion tokens per month. So we are saying that 40,000 paying users average 100 API calls per day, with each call processing 2,000 tokens. Okay, so you're multiplying 2,000 times 100 times 40,000. 4 to 8, 80 million. Okay, so that's how you got 80 million tokens per day. So 40,000 users, where every user is doing 100 API calls, so 100 queries, and every call uses 2,000 tokens, input plus output. Okay, got it. So you multiply everything and you got like 80 million tokens per day or 2.4 billion tokens per month. Okay. Now the cost of that is 24 million per month. What? And just for one's lower rates or Claude usage, maybe $10 to 10 to 15 million per month across all APIs. Free tier usage could add significantly, but Cursor likely optimizes with cheaper models, GPT 3.5, Turbo, or limit request. This is a wild guess. Real numbers depend on. And their annual recurring revenue is 100 million. Whoa. So are they really making money? That makes sense. They're a VC-backed company. They are raising shit ton of money, and all their money is going towards OpenAI bills. So OpenAI is technically making a lot of money through Cursor. Wow. Free tier usage could add significantly, but Cursor likely optimizes with cheaper models. Caching and proprietary optimization. Cursor's cache warming reduces redundant calls. They can their 100 million ARR suggests they can absorb high API costs, but profitability is unclear, especially with their 2.5 billion valuation, recent 100 million funding. Wow. Wow, 100 million funding. They are basically just giving away all their money to OpenAI. They are literally just giving all their money to OpenAI. Wow. Wow. Critical view, opaque cost. Without transparency, we are stuck guessing. Cursor's ensemble model approach, mixing OpenAI, Anthropic, etc., spreads costs, but OpenAI's premium models are pricey and heavy reliance could strain margins. Forum posts show users hitting OpenAI API limits quickly, with Cursor suggesting high token usage even for individuals. This implies Cursor's aggregate spending is substantial, but they have scaled to 100 million ARR, so they are managing it. This is interesting. This is very interesting. Profitability question. This is kind of the reason why we need something like deep research, and we want deep research to be extremely, we want something like deep research, cheap, smaller model, and open source, and we want it to be really, really good. Wow. Wow. They are literally just building this entire product and handing over all their cash to OpenAI. And when they are saying our ARR, we have hit 100 million ARR, is that something to be proud of? Because you are literally making revenue of, you're collecting 100 million, but you might be just giving away 120 million to someone else, to another company, and they might come after you. So you are basically just a brand. You are just a shadow brand. I don't know. Are we talking too much over here? Are we extrapolating the situation too much? But it's very interesting. With users assuming API costs exceed subscription revenue for heavy users, this doesn't confirm overspending, but hints at a tight balancing act. So this makes sense. Like, a lot of people are. This is good for consumers. This is good for consumers that we have this technology. It's really good for consumers that we have this technology. But yeah, thinking about the business model Cursor, not really sure. They also might not want to be really transparent. And we don't know what our OpenAI's next move. So OpenAI is making a lot of money from Cursor. OpenAI is also supporting GitHub Copilot. So OpenAI is kind of winning over here. Okay. Why no exact number? Doesn't disclose API budgets, and OpenAI's usage-based billing varies by model, context length, and optimization. Cursor's features, tab completion, composer, agent mode, blend, custom models, and third-party APIs obscuring OpenAI's share. They acquired Supremacy to reduce reliance on external APIs, and their fork of VS Code lets them optimize calls, potentially lowering cost. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, this Lex Friedman would be really cool. Can is it? I'm just curious. Is it possible for Microsoft to make VS Code non-open source? Yes, it is theoretically possible for Microsoft to make VS Code non-open source. Highly unlikely, and would come with significant practical and strategic challenges. On an MIT license, an open source license that allows anyone to use, modify, and distribute the code, provided they include the original copyright notice. Microsoft owns the VS Code source code and maintains official repository. Distribution: the source code is open, but Microsoft's compiled binaries, the downloadable VS Code app, are distributed under proprietary license, which includes telemetry and restricts. The source code is open, but Microsoft's compiled binaries are distributed under proprietary license, which includes telemetry and restricts commercial redistribution. This is why projects like VS Codium exist, offering fully open source builds without Microsoft's proprietary additions. Can choose to stop releasing new VS Code source code under the MIT license, or change the licensing terms for future versions. Here's how and why they could do it. stop releasing source code, could cease publishing new versions of VS Code source code to GitHub, effectively closing the source for future updates. Existing MIT licensed code up to the last open release would remain open source forever, as the MIT license is irrevocable for distributed code. They could release new versions as proprietary software similar to Visual Studio, not VS Code, which is fully closed source. Okay, so there's a difference between Visual Studio and VS Code. Okay. Change license for new contributions. For new code contributions, Microsoft could require contributors to assign copyright to Microsoft or agree to a proprietary license, preventing future code from being MIT licensed. They would need to rewrite or isolate any community contributions under MIT to avoid legal entanglements. Fork internally. Legal constraints. Microsoft can't retroactively close it, meaning forks like VS Codium or Cursor could continue using and updating that code indefinitely. Ecosystem fallout. Massive adoption relies on its open source ecosystem, extensions, themes, and integrations built by thousands of contributors. Closing the source could alienate developers, fracture the ecosystem, and drive users to alternatives like JetBrains, NeoVim, or forks like VS Codium. Projects like Cursor, which fork VS Code to build AI-powered IDE, would still have access to MIT license code, potentially outpacing a proprietary Microsoft version. Right. It makes sense. Like, the community is actually helping you create a better product. And this has actually happened with Microsoft before. There's a really good example of Wikipedia and how Microsoft tried to make like a closed source Wikipedia, and it never worked because you cannot be expert at everything. But when you have an open source competitor like Wikipedia, you will find people who are just really nerdy about something very specific, and only they can write about it. Not like you cannot hire expert in the world at Microsoft for everything. That's hard. That's impossible. But yeah, it's very similar. I think, yeah, Microsoft won't do that. They cannot do that. It would actually nobody will use their proprietary product. It would be a bad strategy. Community backlash. Open sourcing VS Code in 2015 was a goodwill gesture that rebuilt Microsoft's reputation with developers after years of skepticism. Windows-only tools, Internet Explorer. Reversing this could spark outrage, criticizing companies for closing open source projects. Red Hat's CentOS changes. VS Code is free, driving adoption of Microsoft's paid services like Azure, GitHub Copilot, and Visual Studio. Closing the source might not generate direct revenue, but could reduce funneling to these services. Strategic value, fork resilience. The existing MIT licensed code base is robust enough for forks to thrive. That makes sense. Forks can succeed independently. Microsoft would lose control over the ecosystem without killing it. Precedent has kept other projects open source. TypeScript, .NET Core, despite commercial interest, they balance proprietary layers, Copilot, Azure integrations with open core models, suggesting they would rather layer paid features on VS Code than close it entirely. Community dependence. 15,000 extensions are largely community driven. Could they restricted without closing it? Instead of going fully non-open source, Microsoft could add proprietary layers, restrict contributions, monetize features, relevance to Cursor. Okay, perfect. So this was good. Let's go to this question that we had. Interesting insights. Offers a deep dive into the future of AI-assisted programming on Cursor and Cursor's role in it. Code editors are souped-up word processors. AI is a collaborative partner, not a replacement. Cursor's fork of VS Code for control and speed. No single model rules coding. Real coding versus benchmarks. Programming should be fun. Scaling challenges and privacy. The future. Hybrid engineers. Okay, very interesting. Michael describes a code editor as a highly structured tool for programmers akin to a word processor with superpowers like syntax highlighting, navigation, and real-time error checking. Cursor builds on this by integrating AI to anticipate and streamline developer intent, reducing repetitive tasks. Highlighting how AI amplifies their power. whether over reliance on AI could dilute a programmer's understanding of raw code structure, something the founders don't fully address. Collaborative partner. Enhance, not replace human programmers. They argue that programming involves nuanced design decisions that AI can't fully replicate, like balancing trade offs or understanding a project context. Fears of AI automating coders out of jobs, framing it as a creative enabler. Optimism assumes programmers will always stay ahead of AI's capabilities, which isn't guaranteed as models evolve, especially with advancements like OpenAI's O1. Fork of VS Code for control and speed. Allowed cursor to control the editing experience tightly, enabling rapid feature integration as AI models improve. Unlike plugins, a full IDE lets them optimize everything from UI to model inference. Mm. Strategic bet on customization over compatibility. Bet on customization over compatibility. By owning the stack, Cursor can innovate faster, but it risks alienating users who prefer VS Code's open ecosystem. It's a bold move that paid off, evidenced by their 100 million ARR, but it's not without trade offs. They don't fully unpack. No single model rules coding. No LLM dominates coding tasks. They use an ensemble approach with Anthropic's Sonnet excelling at understanding rough intent and OpenAI's O1 shining on complex reasoning. Speed, context handling, Cleveland's GPT-4 also gets a nod for its ability to handle long context tasks well. Pragmatic reality of AI tool building. There's no one size fits all model. Cursor's mix and match strategy shows flexibility but also underscores the complexity of optimizing AI for real world coding, where human like intuition is hard to replicate. It's a candid admission that even cutting edge AI has limits, challenging the hype around perfect models. Real coding versus benchmarks points out that real world coding differs sharply from benchmark tasks like coding interviews. Actually, this question came to my mind. Let's ask, what do engineers at big tech companies have to say about Cursor? All right, let's go back over here. No single real coding versus benchmark. Real world coding differs sharply from benchmark tasks like coding interviews. Humans give vague, context heavy instructions, do what I did before, or add this UI element, which AI must interpret, unlike the well defined problems and test. This gap explains why Cursor prioritizes code based indexing and instructed edits to capture context, addressing a core challenge in AI coding tools. It's a reminder that practical coding is messy and human driven, which benchmarks often gloss over, mimicking that messy human intent without overstepping. Programming should be fun. Make coding more enjoyable by automating tedious tasks, boilerplate code migrations, letting developers focus on creative problem solving and system design. This vision repositions programming as a joyful creative act rather than a grind, which could attract new talent to the field. However, it assumes all coders find design fun over debugging or nitty gritty task, which isn't universal. It's a rosy view that might not fully grapple with the diverse realities of dev work. Scaling challenges and privacy. The founders discuss scaling Cursor's AI to handle massive code bases efficiently while maintaining privacy. They're exploring techniques like speculative decoding and caching to cut latency and cost. Why it's interesting. This shows the nuts and bolts of building scalable AI tool. Compute cost and privacy aren't just buzzwords but real hurdles. Their focus on security is reassuring, but the trade-off between cloud-based indexing and full-on device processing remains a tension they are navigating, especially for enterprise trust. The future hybrid engineers. They envision programmers as hybrid engineers who blend human ingenuity with AI tools, iterating faster and tackling bigger problems. AI handles grunt work while humans steer the vision. This paints an aspirational future where AI amplifies ambition, not just efficiency, but it sidesteps how this shift might widen skill gaps. Novices could lean too heavily on AI while experts dominate high level design. The hybrid ideal sounds empowering but could reshape who thrives in tech. And the technical chops, MIT background, early GPT-4 access give their vision weight. They're candid about AI's limits. No model's perfect. Real coding's messy. But their optimism about fun and collaboration might underplay risks like skill erosion or AI overreach. Cursor's success proves they are onto something, and the podcast leaves you wondering, will AI tools like Cursor truly democratize coding or just raise the bar for what good programmers must master? Should be fun, scaling challenges, and privacy. Hybrid engineers. Okay. Really cool. Let's see if we have interesting stuff over here. Introduction, code editor basics, GitHub Copilot, Cursor tab, code dev, ML details, GPT versus Claude, prompt engineering, AI agents running code in the background, debugging, dangerous code. Whoa. Branching file systems, scaling challenges, context, synthetic data, scaling laws, the future of programming.
This is an excellent opportunity to dive deep into the role of AI in programming. This
code web. Hang on, right? It sort of has some sketchiness, but actually eliciting the sketchiness to, part of it is that humans are really calibrated on which bugs are really important. It's not just actually saying like there's something sketchy. It's like is this sketchy trivial? Is this sketchy like you're gonna take the server down? It's like part of it is maybe the cultural knowledge of like why is a staff engineer a staff engineer? And a staff engineer is good because they know that 3 years ago someone wrote a really sketchy piece of code that took the server down, and as opposed to maybe it's like you just this thing is like an experiment, so like a few bugs are fine, like you're just trying to experiment and get the feel of the thing. And so if the model gets really annoying when you're writing an experiment, that's really bad. But if you're writing something for super production, you're like writing a database, right? You're writing code in Postgres or Linux or whatever, like your Linus torvald's, it's sort of unacceptable to have even in edge case. And just having the calibration of like how paranoid is the user, like.
But even then, like if you're putting in a maximum paranoia, it still just like doesn't quite get it.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is hard for humans too to understand which line of code is important, which is not. Like I think one of your principles on the website says if a code can do a lot of damage, one should add a comment that say this line of code is dangerous.
And all caps. 10 times.
No, you say like for every single line of code inside the function, you have to and that's quite profound. That says something about human beings because the engineers move on, even the same person might just forget how it can sink the Titanic, a single function. Like you might not intuit that quite clearly by looking at the single piece of code.
Yeah, I think that one is also partially also for today's AI models, where if you actually write dangerous in every single line, like the models will pay more attention to that and will be more likely to find bugs in that region.
That's actually just straight up a really good practice of labeling code of how much damage this can do.
Yeah, I mean it's controversial. Some people think it's, I believe, I actually think it's like I actually think it's one of the things I learned from Aria is like sort of aesthetically I don't like it, but I think there's certainly something where like it's useful for the models and humans just forget a lot, and it's really easy to make a small mistake and cause like just bring down the server and or go first wait like test log or whatever, but there's always these things that you have to be very careful.
Yeah, like with just normal doc strings, I think people often just skim it when making a change and they go, because I don't do this. And you kind of really need to break it down to them so that doesn't slip through.
Yeah, you have to be reminded that you can do a lot of damage. That's like we don't really think about that. Like, you think about, okay, how do I figure out how this works so I can improve it? You don't think about the other direction.
Until we have formal verification for everything, then you can do whatever you want, and you know for certain that you have not introduced a bug into proof pass.
But concretely, what do you think that future would look like?
I think people will just not write tests anymore, and the model will suggest, like you write a function, the model will suggest a spec, and you read the spec, and in the meantime, a smart reasoning model computes a proof that the implementation follows the spec. And I think that happens for most functions.
So do you think this gets at a little bit some of the stuff you were talking about earlier with the difficulty of specifying intent for what you want with software? Where sometimes it might be, because the intent is really hard to specify, it's also then going to be really hard to prove that it's actually matching whatever your intent is.
Why do you think that spec is hard to generate? I think
speed and agency for the programmer and control. The ability to modify easily. Want to modify the ability to iterate really fast when you're building.
Or thing that will probably like improve performance for some like decent amount of time.
Yeah, but also these big labs like winning. So they're just going wild. Okay. So how, big question looking out into the future. You're now the center of the programming world. How do you think the nature of programming changes in the next few months, in the next year, in the next 2 years, next 5 years, 10 years?
I think we're really excited about a future where the programmer's in the driver's seat for a long time. And you've heard us talk about this a little bit, but one that emphasizes speed and agency for the programmer and control, the ability to modify easily, want to modify the ability to iterate really fast when you're building. And this is a little different, I think, than where some people are jumping where I think one idea that's captivated people is, can you talk to your computer? Can you have it build software for you as if you're talking to like an engineering department or an engineer over Slack, and kind of just be this sort of isolated text box? And part of the reason we're not excited about that is, some of the stuff we talked about latency, but then a big reason we're not excited about that is because that comes with giving up a lot of control. It's much harder to be really specific when you're talking in the text box. And if you're necessarily just going to communicate with a thing like you would be communicating with an engineering department, you're actually abdicating tons of really important decisions to this bot. And this kind of gets at fundamentally what engineering is. I think that some people who are a little bit more removed from engineering might think of it as, the spec is completely written out, and then the engineers just come and they just implement. And it's just about making the thing happen in code, making the thing exist. But I think a lot of the best engineering we enjoy involves tons of tiny micro decisions about what exactly you're building and about really hard trade-offs between speed and cost and just all the other things involved in a system. And we want, as long as humans are actually the ones making, designing the software and the ones specifying what they want to be built, and it's not just like company run by all AIs, we think you'll really want the human in the driver's seat in getting these decisions. And so there's the jury's still out on kind of what that looks like. I think that one weird idea for what that could look like is it could look like you can control the level of abstraction you view a code base at, and you can point at specific parts of a code base that maybe you digest a code base by looking at it in the form of pseudocode, and you can actually edit that pseudocode too, and then have changes get made down at the sort of formal programming level, and you keep the you can gesture at any piece of logic in your software component of programming. You keep the inflow text editing component of programming. You keep the control of, you can go down into the code, you can go at higher levels of abstraction, while also getting these big productivity gains.
It'd be nice if you go up and down the abstraction stack.
Yeah, and there are a lot of details to figure out there. That's sort of like a fuzzy idea. Time will tell if it actually works. But these principles of control and speed and human driver's seat we think are really important. We think for some things, like Rubin mentioned before, for some stuff programming, you can kind of hand it off chatbot style. If you have a bug that's really well specified, but that's not most of programming, and that's also not most of the programming we think a lot of people value.
What about like the fundamental skill of programming? There's a lot of people, like young people right now, kind of scared, like thinking because they like love programming, but they're scared about like, will I be able to have a future if I pursue this career path? Do you think the very skill of programming will change fundamentally?
I actually think this is a really, really exciting time to be building software. Like, we remember what programming was like in 2013, 2012, whatever it was, and there was just so much more cruft and boilerplate, and looking at something really gnarly, and yeah, that's definitely not at zero. But programming today is way more fun than back then. It's like we're really getting down to the light concentration, and all the things that really draw people to programming, like for instance, this element of being able to build things really fast and speed and also individual control. Like all those are just being turned up a ton. And so I think it's going to be a really, really fun time for people to build software. And the skills will probably change too. I think that people's taste and creative ideas will be magnified, and will be less about maybe less a little bit about boilerplate text editing, maybe even a little bit less about carefulness, which I think is really important today. If you're a programmer, it'll be a lot more fun.
What do you guys think?
I agree. I'm very excited to be able to change. Like, just one thing that happened recently was like we wanted to do a relatively big migration to our code base. We were using async local storage in Node.js, which is Node.js not very performant, and we wanted to migrate to a context object. And this is a big migration that affects the entire code base. And so on, and I spent, 5 days working through this, even with today's AI tools. And I am really excited for a future where I can just show a couple of examples, and then the AI applies that to all of the locations, and then it highlights, oh, this is a new example, like what should I do, and then I show exactly what to do there. And then that can be done in like 10 minutes. And then you can iterate much faster. Then you don't have to think as much up front and stand at the blackboard and like think exactly like how are we going to do this because the cost is so high. But you can just try something first, and you realize, oh, this is not actually exactly what I want, and then you can change it instantly again after. And so yeah, I think being a programmer in the future is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really like that point about it feels like a lot of time programming. There are two ways you can go about it. One is like you think really hard, carefully upfront about the best possible way to do it, and then you spend your limited time of engineering to actually implement it. But I much prefer just getting in the code and like taking a graphic, seeing how it kind of lays out, and then iterating really quickly on that. That feels more fun.
Yeah, like just speaking to generate the boilerplate is great. So you just focus on the difficult design, nuanced, difficult design decisions. Migration, I feel like this is a cool one. Like it seems like large language model is able to basically translate from one programming language to another, or like translate, like migrate in the general sense of what migrate is. But that's in the current moment. So I mean, the fear has to do with like, okay, as these models get better and better, then you're doing less and less creative decisions, and is it going to kind of move to a place where it's you're operating in the design space of natural language, when natural language is the main programming language. And I guess I could ask that by way of advice. Like if somebody's interested in programming now, what do you think they should learn? Like today, you guys started in Java, and I forget the other, some PHP.
Objective-C.
Objective-C, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, we all know JavaScript is going to win. And not TypeScript, it's going to be like vanilla JavaScript. It's going to eat the world. Maybe a little bit PHP. And I mean, it also brings up the question of like, I think Don Knuth has this idea that some percent of the population is geeks.
Geeks comprise about 2% of the world's population.
And like, there's a particular kind of psychology in mind required for programming. And it feels like more and more that expands. The kind of person that should be able to, can do great programming might expand.
I think different people do programming for different reasons, but I think the true, like the best programmers, are the ones that really love, just like absolutely love programming. For example, the folks on our team who literally when they get back from work, they go and then they boot up cursor and then they start coding on their side projects for the entire night, and they stay up till 3 a.m. doing that. And when they're sad, they said, I just really need to code. And I think like, there's that level of programmer where like this obsession and love of programming, I think makes really the best programmers. And I think these types of people will really get into the details of how things work.
I guess the question I'm asking, that exact program, think about that person. When the super tab is super awesome, praise be the tab, succeeds, and you keep pressing tab.
That person in the team loves pressing tab more than anything else. Yeah, and it's also not just like pressing tab is like just pressing tab. That's like the easy way to say it, and like the catchphrase, But what you're actually doing when you're pressing tab is that you're injecting intent all the time while you're doing it. You're sometimes you're rejecting, sometimes you're taking from more characters, and that's the way that you're sort of shaping the things that's being created. And I think programming will change a lot to just what is it that you want to make. It's sort of higher bandwidth. The communication to the computer just becomes higher and higher bandwidth as opposed to like just typing is much lower bandwidth than communicating.
this goes to your manifesto titled Engineering Genius.
Engineering genius. NHP is an applied research lab building extraordinary productive human AI systems. To start, we are building the engineer of the future, human AI programmer. That's an order of magnitude more effective than any one engineer. This hybrid engineer will have effortless control over their code base and low entropy keystrokes. They will iterate at the speed of their judgment, even in the most complex systems, using a combination of AI and human ingenuity. They will outsmart and out engineer the best pure AI system. We are a group of researchers and engineers. We build software and models to invent at the edge of what's useful and what's possible. Our work has already improved the lives of hundreds of thousands of programmers.
Yes. We are an applied research lab building extraordinary productive human AI systems. So speaking to this like hybrid element. To start, we're building the engineer of the future, a human AI programmer that's an order of magnitude more effective than any one engineer. This hybrid engineer will have effortless control over their code base and no low entropy keystrokes. They will iterate at the speed of their judgment, even in the most complex systems. Using a combination of AI and human ingenuity, they will outsmart and out-engineer the best pure AI systems. We are a group of researchers and engineers. We build software and models to invent at the edge of what's useful and what's possible. Our work has already improved the lives of hundreds of thousands.
Oh wow. Is Lex gonna end this to our podcast with this beautiful line? They will iterate at the speed of the judgment, even the most complex systems.
Of programmers. And on the way to that, we'll at least make programming more fun. So thank you for talking today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with Michael, Swali, Arvid, and
It was amazing. Amazing end to the podcast. Great. Okay. Our goal is to make it easier for anyone to produce software. AI colleagues are in the best final state. There's overhead in communicating ideas. If you have something close to instant that can iterate with you, development will look different. Okay, that was beautiful. I think I asked a couple more questions. Okay, we covered this one. What do engineers at big tech companies have to say about Cursor? Range of opinions, positive sentiments, productivity boost. Speeding up coding tasks, for example, users at companies like OpenAI, Shopify, and Instacart report it's a 2x improvement over GitHub Copilot. Tab completion that feels magical 25% of the time, anticipating the next steps. They value its ability to generate multi-line edits from natural language prompts, reducing manual typing. Seamless integration, familiar extensions and workflows. It's elegant, no more copying and pasting from ChatGPT, highlighting its in-editor AI features like code generation and debugging. Right, so that's the difference between ChatGPT Canvas and going straight into IDE with Cursor. Cursor's code-based indexing is a hit, allowing engineers to query complex projects in plain English. Find this function, fix this bug. Users at Midjourney and Perplexity say it saves hours combing through large code bases. Adoption buzz. I see engineers calling Cursor the new favorite tool overnight, suggesting strong word-of-mouth adoption at big tech firms. Reportedly encourage its use for efficiency, though not for autonomous code shipping. Autonomous code shipping, this is interesting. Who was it? I think it was Brian Armstrong at Coinbase, where he's like, we are now practicing autonomous code shipping, where some extremely low priority tickets, they will be automatically coded and everything will be done with autonomous code. And I'm not sure if they were like, we will just ship it, or the human will only come into loop at the verification stage. I forgot what it's called, when you push the PR, right? So human will only intervene at the end when everything is ready for them to push the PR. Yeah, I don't know if that's I'm using the right terms, but okay. Mixed sentiments, comparison to competitors. Prefer Cursor's paired programming feel over fully autonomous tools like Devin, AI researcher at Morgan Stanley. Posted on X that Cursor's hands-on workflow lets them review code in real time, unlike Devin's end-to-end approach. Others argue competitors like Codium's Windsurf outperform Cursor in large-scale code bases, especially for TypeScript-heavy projects where Cursor struggles with context or API consistency. Learning curve and trust. While Cursor's AI is powerful, engineers know it's not perfect. A software engineer on X with 1,000+ hours using Cursor flagged issues like subtle bugs and initial outputs requiring manual fixes. By the way, look at this. The sun is over there. I'm getting sunlight from there. And then there's a beautiful building in front of me. So I'm basically looking at two suns right now. And they are lighting me up so good. So good right now. Wow. I think this should be the perfect time to stream, because we get that natural lighting hitting on our face. Beautiful. Okay. Niche superiority. A developer reviewing Cursor alongside Versal's V0 And Bolt.news said Cursor excels for day-to-day coding due to editor familiarity, but V0 is better for rapid UI prototyping. This suggests engineers see Cursor as strong but not universally dominant depending on the task. So Cursor is very built for engineers who want to be more productive, and V0 is more built for non-engineers who just want to start coding. So people who don't identify their identity is not like I'm a coder, I'm an engineer, they would all go to Versal V0 where they're like I can just write and it will happen. Learning curve and trust. Critical notes. Limited direct quotes. Most feedback comes from anonymous or pseudonymous sources on X. Bias towards evangelists. Cursor's 100 million ARR and 40,000 plus paying users suggest strong fans, but vocal advocates like former OpenAI researcher Andrei Karpathy may skew perceptions. Negative feedback is less visible, possibly because critics don't post publicly or stick with alternatives like Copilot. Big tech context. Face stricter security protocols. Cursor addresses with SOC 2 certification, privacy mode. Still, some may hesitate to fully adopt it due to data concerns. Game changer for productivity, praising its AI-driven features, VS Code integration, context-aware coding, necessity for streamlining workflows. What exactly is SOC 2 certification? System and Organization Controls 2, compliance standard developed by the American Institute of CPAs to ensure that a company's security manages customer data based on the 5 trust services criteria: security, availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. Company has controls in place to protect customer data, reduce risk, and meet regulatory expectation. Type 1. Systems are designed to meet trust criteria at a specific point in time. Type 2. Controls operate effectively over a period, typically 6 to 12 months, offering deeper assurance. Trust service criteria: security, availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality, privacy, audit process, independent CPA firm, reviewing policies, procedures, technical controls, detailed reports shared with clients under NDA on a public certificate, duration maintenance isn't permanent, audit occurs annually, and type 2 reports cover a defined period. Companies must continuously maintain controls. Relevance to Cursor. Okay, we don't need to read that. Anisphere. Also, let's look at Cursor, the AI code editor. Okay. Download for Mac OS, the AI code editor, built to make you extraordinarily productive. Cursor is the best way to code with AI. Okay. Could you make it easier to switch certificates in the transport listeners? Perfect. Trusted by engineers at Shopify, OpenAI, Replicate, Perplexity, Midjourney, Samsung, Instacart, Ramp, Versal. Oh, Versal is using Cursor instead of V0. Wow. Tap, tap, tap. Cursor lets you breeze through changes by predicting your next edit. Tap, 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 tap. Wow. Knows your code base. Get answers from your code base or refer to files or docs. Use the model's code in one click. How could I make it easier to switch certificates and transport listeners? Then you just accept it and it works. Okay. Edit in natural language. Paralyzes because the API is slow. Accept. Submitted it. Whoa. Okay. Cursor lets you write code using instructions, update entire classes or functions with a single prompt. Simple prompt. Build software faster, intelligent, fast, and familiar. Cursor. This makes sense. Like this particular use case is more about like, okay, if you want to change something everywhere, you can just do it now faster with natural language rather than with natural language. Okay. Build software faster, intelligent, fast, and familiar. Cursor is the best way to code with AI. Frontier intelligence feels familiar. Privacy options. Iterating with shadow workspaces. Blog posted by Arvid. Hidden windows and kernel level folder proxies to let AIs iterate on code without affecting the users. Loved by world-class devs. Josh Miller. I went from never hearing about Cursor to many IC engineers telling me it's their new favorite tool seemingly overnight. Pretty wild product market fit. Started using Cursor yesterday and I'm blown away. OpenAI. The cursor tab completion while coding is occasionally so magic it defies reality. About 25% of the time is anticipating exactly what I want to do. It is enough to make you believe that eventually you will be able to code at the speed of thought. Best product I've used in a while, it's an AI enabled editor. I just asked it to write a README for a project I've been working on, analyze the code base, and worked first time. Okay. Notion. Writing code at Cursor is a necessity. Cursor is steps ahead of my brain, proposing multi-line edits, so I type tab more than anything else. Cursor is goated for real. Warda. Someone finally put GPT into a Cursor code editor in a seamless way. It's so elegant and easy. It's no more copying and pasting. It's an or. I'm an hour in and already hooked. It noticed I was inconsistent with my markup and popped up this suggestion that matched my other items. Instacart. At least 2x improvement. It's amazing having an AI pair programmer. Try Cursor now. Pricing. 20 per month, unlimited completions, 400 fast premium requests per month, unlimited slow premium request. What are premium models? Premium models are GPT-4, 4.0, Claude. You have 500 fast users and unlimited slow users each month. Why isn't Cursor completely free? LLMs cost quite a bit of money to run. To grow Cursor sustainably without compromising our service quality, we need to cover our cost. What are fast and slow users? Fast users of premium models are given first priority by our backend on Pro. Once you hit fast usage limit, you can still use premium models, but your request may be queued behind others at times of high load. What code do you store? Who owns the code generated in Cursor? You, regardless of whether you use the free Pro or business version of Cursor, all generated code is yours and free to be used however you like, including commercially. So you own all the code. Pricing, downloads, docs, forum security, team, features. Agent runs command loops on errors, find context, tab, chat. Control, command K. Try Cursor now, terminal K. Write terminal commands in plain English. Reset the last comment. Convert them into the terminal command you need. Quick questions. Use images, ask the web. Use documentation, code-based answers, reference your code, instant apply, chat, multi-line edit, smart rewrites, Cursor prediction, finds context. I see this is a next.js project. Let's install Tailwind and dependency, then configure it. I'll first check the current package, JSON, to ensure you don't have any conflicts. Finds context, run commands, loops on errors. Enterprise, the choice for modern engineering organization. Deloitte, OpenAI, Johnson Johnson, Motorola, Mercado Libre. Used by leading development teams to increase productivity and efficiency in how code is written, edited, and reviewed. Build software faster, committed to security. Blog. Character prefix conditioning. Inference characteristics of Llama. Series B in automating code. 1 minute read. More problems. Applied Research Lab working on automating coding. Our approach is to build the engineer of the future. A human AI programmer that's an order of magnitude more effective than any one programmer. The Cursor of today is the very start of that, and our ambition stretches much further to an entirely new form of programming where invention is effortless. To help us get there, we're announcing today that we have raised 105 million in Series B funding from Thrive, A16Z, Benchmark, existing investors. Invest in frontier research on systems, models, and product. Central to our approach is achieving real-world scale. We are delighted to report that Cursor is now used by millions of programmers as their editor of choice. Our proprietary models now generate more code than almost any LLMs in the world and edit over 1 billion characters vectors per day. Our business is large and fast growing, having exceeded 100 million recurring revenue. Careers. Engineering genius. Okay. Let's go. What are compare Cursor and Windsurf? Yeah, what was this? Engineering genius, applied research lab, working on automating coding our approaches to build the engineer of the future. They will iterate at the speed. This is beautiful. The hybrid engineer will have effortless control over their code base and no low entropy keystrokes. They will iterate at the speed of the judgment even in the most complex systems. Using a combination of AI and human ingenuity, they will outsmart and out-engineer the best pure AI system. It's kind of nice. Let's put this out. Cursor. Let's maybe also tweet this. Actually, we should first select this and then screenshot it. This is kind of cool. Okay. We'll open a new one and then we will put this as cursor. Termine poste. Nice. Okay. Now we have read this research engineer, product engineer, infrastructure engineer, GTM. They're also hiring for GTM. Automate coding, the first step in a journey is to build the best tool for professional programmers using a combination of inventive research, design, and engineering. Group of engineers and research and scientists who have built well-known products, created large OSS projects, started productive businesses, won Olympiad medals, and published significant research. TMM1, Ian, Luke, Phil, Federico, Aman. Our organization is very flat and our team is small and talent dense. We particularly like people who are truth-seeking, passionate, and creative. We enjoy spirited debate, crazy ideas, and shipping code. We are in person in a cozy office in North Beach, San Francisco, replete with a well-stocked library. Our investors include A16Z, OpenAI, Jeff Dean, John Schulman, and the founders of Stripe and GitHub. Submit a short video, no more than 60 seconds, showcasing your exceptional abilities and why you should be part of the GTM team. Engineering organizations realize the capabilities of Cursor and imagine how software will be written in the future. Depending on one's interest, this might mean working to build strategic relationships with our customers, supporting companies to effectively implement Cursor, automating GTM efforts through internal engineering projects, solving distribution challenges, crafting compelling product marketing narratives, engaging with developer communities, or perhaps tackling a problem area not yet conceived of. And I guess this is all that any Sphere website is. It's just this. Okay, so I think this will be the last thing that we look at. Cursor and Windsurf, and we are at 1 hour 20 minutes. Wow, beautiful. By Anisphere, Windsurf by Codium. Okay, built as forks of VS Code, so both have done the same thing. Oh, all right, so we saw the Cursor March 23. Engineers had, okay, we got it. Windsurf November 24. Oh, very recent. Focus, an agentic IDE prioritizing deep code base used by growing traction among developers, especially for large code bases, though less name dropped at big tech compared to Cursor. Praised for simplicity, affordability, and context awareness, but newer and still refining polish. Let's quickly look at their website. Windsurf editor, built to keep you in flow state. Okay, beautiful. I think this is beautiful because this is what engineers, a lot of people care about, being in flow state. The first agentic IDE and then some, the Windsurf editor is where the work of developers in AI truly flow together, allowing for a coding experience that feels like literal magic.
Hey, my name is Varun from Codium, and today we're launching the Windsurf Editor. Think about the last time you felt magic with technology. The first ChatGPT question, the first smartphone interaction, or the very first internet search. Magic happens when the interaction with technology is intuitive, but it's also obvious that something super powerful is happening under the surface. So what does true magic look like for software development? We believe it's an editor where you and the AI can truly mind develop, with information naturally and infinitely flowing between the two without any friction, giving you instant, invaluable AI developer assistance where you want it and when you want it. And that's the core Windsurf Editor paradigm shift.
Oh yeah, I like it. This sounds super high ROI. Hi. Okay. Yeah, Varun. Keep going.
Copilots are collaborative, but can only work on small scopes. Agents can do larger tasks, but are not collaborative. Both are very useful, but we realize that this real magic will happen when the AI has the ability to be both collaborative and independently powerful, all wrapped up in an intuitive interface. That is an AI flow, which is what we think comes after AI agents. The core motivation of creating the Windsurf editor was to natively expose flows, starting with Cascade, the flow evolution of chat. Flows create magic by giving the AI access to three things: knowledge, tools, and human actions. Let's start with knowledge. Here is us asking Cascade to add docs to all integration tests in a production focus. To do this well, Cascade needs to rip through all the code, identify the integration tests, understand what those tests are testing, and generate contextually relevant doc strings. That's a lot of deep code-based understanding. Most attempts from other companies have normally degraded quickly as code bases get larger and more complex. But that's where our multiple years of creating powerful context-oriented systems gives Cascade the edge. Next up is tools. We've given Cascade access to tools like this directory, grep, edit file, add file, and more. This allows Cascade to be independent, but Cascade takes it further than any other agentic system by also generating commands to be run. Here is Cascade installing the requirements.txt file and independently realizing that it needed to use Python 3 instead of Python given my environment. Or here's Cascade suggesting new files. Don't worry, the human is in the loop approving the commands, but Cascade can truly take action by utilizing the broad set of tools. Finally is human action. This is where the collaborative aspect of flows really shines. Cascade lives more everywhere. So if you make some changes in the text editor, as shown here, you can just ask Cascade to continue, and it will pick up in the AI are always human actions to create great at building from small 0 to 1. From the first prototype we built, Cascade was already great at building most ambitious investment, locking the engineers inside of Codium started to rely. And Cascade, to work on our own production code base, we knew that we had. Cascade is a fundamental leap from what was possible before, and we're really excited to be able to share it now, knowing it's necessary. Of course, this is just the beginning. We know that Cascade has the potential to do more impressive tasks on larger developer AI, for AI to become more of the keyword. So that's the beginning.
Whether it's Cascade or in the text editor engine, to assist you however you write code. The Windsurf editor was built around our AI engine to assist you however you write code. And to love, finish your thoughts. See with multi-cursor, faster, run command to turn custom, the Windsurf editor.
We're really excited about the Windsurf Editor, memes, but there wasn't partly hard on it. It is a fork of VS Code, and yet Windsurf Editor internalizes something super powerful with another magical moment with technology. It's why we call the Windsurf Editor tomorrow's editor today. So, what do you think?
What do I think? What do I think, Varun? I'll tell you what I think. I think this Windsurf editor flies. It's really fast. I think this is the next big thing. No, I think people expect it, Varun. When?
You can experience the magic today at Windsurf.ai.
Windsurf.ai, fuckers. Fucking Rubin, man. He's fucking killed it. Congrats on the new office space, man. Hey, look at this. Fucking great. Oh, the Windsurf guy. Has it open?
Okay, nice. Nice. Flows, the way humans are meant to work with AI. Agents plus Copilot. Once your app is ready, hit deploy and push it to live. The possibilities are literally endless. Linter integration. Tap to jump, get free Cascade credits and pro features on download. Okay, cool. Code completion, super complete, code generation, composer, Cascade, chat, Cascade chat, context awareness, multi-file edits, terminal integration, bug detection, extension, performance, faster code completion, slower code completion, more comprehensive suggestion, cleaner, more responsive UI, occasional UI crashes or context loss after long prompt chains, dubbed hallucination by users. Whoa, Apple like for polish, those some known glitches in early release, fewer crash reported. User experience, busy interface with AI buttons everywhere, minimalist clean design, prioritizing flow. Acts like a core developer, feels like a helpful assistant. Boldly writing to files, great for speed but risks over automation as noted by developers on Reddit who dislike unintended changes. Preferred by engineers who want control, but sidebar-based edits can be cumbersome for large changes. Learning curve, gentler with intuitive defaults. Big tech users on X says it's easier to onboard teams, but advanced users may want more manual controls. Cheaper, Due to feature density, some engineers miss its best tools bug finder without tutorials per web views. Free tier $15 per month per seat, $20 privacy. Engineer sentiment praise excels in large scale refactors. Redid my design system across 50 files flawlessly where cursor failed. Its agentic cascade is one step ahead for automation. Loves its setup. Necessity for its speed and precise UI generation. Feels like pair programming without the hassle. Its 2x productivity boost over Copilot is a common refrain. Struggles with massive code base where it loses context or needs excessive tagging. A Google engineer, it's great until your repo's a monster. Then it's a hit or miss. Slower completion and noise, fast-paced coders, and over-assertive edits frustrate seniors who want control. Windsor is great but keeps changing stuff I didn't ask for. Pricing opacity steps versus request irks some. Critical takeaway: go to for speed, precision, familiarity, large scale, automation, simplicity. Speed, precision, familiarity. Context aware, cascade, lower cost. It's like Copilot that sometimes flies too boldly, risking errors but saving time on complex projects. If you're at a big tech firm, prioritizing fast control coding for smaller scopes, or if you are deep in the VS Code ecosystem. It's crazy, like because Cursor went fast into the big tech companies, they have a lot of leverage, just a lot of network effects. Like pretty much everybody adopted Cursor first. They're gonna recommend every other team member that hey, why are you using Windsurf? Like use Cursor. That's what we're using. And Cursor then has a kind of a wedge to keep improving and keep seeing that okay, Windsurf is good at something like large context files or whatever they call it, large scale automation. Then we will get better at it. Winning fans for okay. Feature-rich approach and clear pricing appeals to engineers who want AI as a sidekick, but it stumbles on huge repos and has a steeper learning curve. Think of it as a scalpel. Sharp, but not for every job. If you're deep into the VS Code ecosystem, if you're on budget working with large code bases or prefer hands-off automation, startups, legacy refactors, it's a shield for teams, but expect occasional tweaks to its agentic quirks. Okay, really cool. 1 hour 27